Shanghai. I'm not sure the Arabic for good morning. Ahlan wa sahlan. Okay. Welcome and congratulations for coming today for this postgrad talk. All right. I think this is a very good event, good program. Okay, especially to all the students, postgrad students. I know all of you very eager to do your research. All right. Okay. So I think all of us is here more or less. Okay. Um, Before I start this chat, we call it. Okay. Let me introduce a bit on myself and then the honorable presenter here. Okay. My name is Mr. Muhammad Fabian bin Asna. Now I'm working as a tutor in Faculty of Design and Architecture in Landscape Department. Okay, so we introduce our uh, presenter, guest of honor. All right. Today is the talk will be held by Dr. Sridharan Marutaveran, or we call it him Dr. Sri. All right. He is currently a senior lecturer at the Department of Landscape Architecture, Faculty of Design and Architecture, UPM. Okay, he was a researcher at the Urban Forestry and Landscape Unit, Forest Research Institute of Malaysia in Frim, Kepong, for 13 years. Okay, before joining the academia field, he also has served as an editor at the textbook department at the Institute of Language and Literature, Dewan Bahasa dan Pustaka, DBP. Dr. Sri also obtained his PhD from the University of Copenhagen, Denmark, in landscape architecture and planning. Right, his research falls into a number of themes such as environmental behavior, landscape visualization, urban greening, urban forestry, and arboriculture. And his PhD work was on fear of crime in urban parks in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He is also keen in using visualization methods in his research. All right, Dr. Sri has involved in a range of international networking and project activities. One of the highlights is the collaboration project between the Royal Veterinary and Agriculture University, KVL, and the University of Copenhagen, Denmark, since 2007. Apart from the research consultation projects, particularly from the urban forestry and agriculture perspective, such as tree risk assessment and inventory at golf courses, embassies, and botanical garden have also been conducted by him. All right. So he also do lots of job outside the research also. And Dr. Sri has produced about 70 publications, including books, reviewed proceedings, journals, and popular writing. Right. He has also has vast experience as a reviewer for several journals such as Urban Forestry and Urban Greening, Journal of Landscape and Urban Planning, Journal of Tropical Forest Science, Forest Science and Botanical Journal of Social Science and Humanities, UPM1. He has reviewed several conference proceedings and school textbooks at the national level. Dr. Sri currently holds the position as the Deputy Coordinator for the Urban Forestry Section under the International Union and Forest Research Organization, Austria. He is also a certified arborist under the International Society of Arboriculture, ISA, USA, since 2007. Wow, that's a long, very good resume, Dr. Sri, a very long one. Okay, all right. I think you guys are very lucky today to have Dr. Sri as your teacher, as your lecturer, as your presenter today. All right. Before I give hand over the floor to Dr. Sri, we'll just briefly remind you all just to mute the microphone. If you have any questions or the voice is not clear, don't hesitate just to let us know or just type in the chat chat box on the left side, if I'm not mistaken. All right. Okay. Dr. Sri, are you ready?
Yeah. Yes, Frsb.
All
Okay.
right. Okay, everyone. I hand over the floor to Dr. Sri to
Okay.
give a talk, his talk. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much, Chef Fabian. Thank you very much for the introduction, and a very good morning. A very good morning to all of you. I'm glad to see many postgraduate students are here, especially from our faculty at Frsb. So that's a good sign. For today's uh, chat. Okay, for today's chat, it won't be like it's not a workshop. Okay, so it's not a workshop. So I won't be, of course, some of you might be expecting me to explain in detail what are the procedures that involve when we conduct systematic literature review. Okay, but I think my intention for today's talk or chat, I think it's more on to induce, okay, to induce most of our postgraduate students on the importance of conducting systematic literature review. Okay, so that was my intention. But of course, we will just glance through, okay, what are the steps involved when you conduct systematic literature review. Okay, but my main aim is actually to introduce to all of you, okay, the postgraduate students, especially the PhD students, on why not consider, okay, why not consider on systematic review as part of your PhD or master's project. Okay, so it will be it will be like a sharing session. Okay, I'll be also sharing my experience as a PhD student, because there was the moment in fact I learned about this method. There was the time where I was introduced even to what is systematic review about. Okay, so it will be a sharing session, but at the same time, I'll be also explaining to you all, okay, very briefly, what are the important process involved when we do systematic review. Okay, and also for your information, I mean, you guys can also stop me anytime you want. I mean, if you have any questions, you can just go ahead. Okay, go ahead if you have any questions. Okay. Is the voice okay? I mean, can you hear me? Is it clear?
Yes, doctor, clear, clear.
Okay. 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 Can hear. Okay. Okay. Let's move on to the next slide. Okay. So this is the place. Okay. I did my PhD. Okay. At the University of Copenhagen. Okay. University of Copenhagen in Denmark. And I was actually was given scholarship by MOSTI, Ministry of Science. So when I was there, okay, during my first and second semester, okay, so because you are not allowed to come back to your home country, okay, because MOSTI they told me that in order for you to go back home to go back again to Malaysia, you need to only go back during your data collection, because though I did my PhD in Copenhagen, but my study site was in Malaysia actually. Okay, so I'm only allowed to go back home with their expenses, okay, only during the second year. Okay, so I was basically thinking, what should I do actually? I have 2 semesters. Okay, I have 2 semesters in Denmark. So what should I do? So I was basically thinking about what should I do. I mean, you don't just do. I mean, the traditional narrative kind of literature review. I mean, of course, I mean you can do, but it will be like a waste of time. I mean, if you don't do something very solid. Okay, so in the process of, like many of you, okay, as a postgraduate student, I did also the traditional narrative kind of way on review. Okay, so I Google for research papers and this and that, and found all these papers, and also read through all these papers regarding about my research topic and so on. So while I was doing my literature review, okay, so this is was not yet systematic review. So I came across all these systematic review papers, okay, systematic review papers, and I found so amazed, okay, amazed because okay, most of these review papers, okay, review papers are written only by those normally those professors, I mean, who have a lot of experiences in their field and so on, okay, review papers. So I was amazed by looking at all these systematic review papers that are being published by PhD students. Okay, so this was way back in 2011. Okay, when I did my PhD studies. Okay, in 2011. So and on top of that, in Denmark and also in many of these Scandinavian countries and also most of the European countries, it's a culture. Okay, it's a culture that most of these PhD students they will go through the process of doing systematic reading rather the normal, okay, narrative kind of review. Okay, so it's a culture. Okay, like in Denmark and in most of these Scandinavian countries. Okay, and also in most other European countries. Okay, many of these PhD students, when they start off their first and second semester, they will be all these students will be busy doing their systematic review. Okay, it's not just finding journal papers and so on, but they are also busy doing the systematic review. So I took the challenge. Okay, I took the challenge because since I'm also far from my from Malaysia and so on, I came all the way to Denmark to do my PhD. So I took the challenge that I need to learn something. Okay, I learn something new. This is an important factor. Okay, but for most of you as a PhD students or even a master student, okay, when you do your PhD or master studies, to some new knowledge. Okay, this new knowledge can be in terms of a new method. Okay, you perhaps a new method while doing your PhD. You can perhaps also learn something, a new statistical packages or statistical analysis and so on. So during when I was doing my PhD, I was telling to myself that I need to bring something new, some new knowledge back to Malaysia. I need to learn some new method. So I took the challenge and I went and see my supervisor. Okay, and the advice that he gave me was, of course, I mean he was very uh, minded, but he told me that Sri, I mean if you systematic review, it's fine, okay, but you have to remember that you will it will take a lot of time. Okay, I agree. Okay, when systematic review, of course, it takes a lot of time. Okay, a lot of time because you need to review each of the papers that you found. Okay, very thoroughly, very thoroughly. So it will take a lot of sorry, it will take a lot of time actually. Okay, so since because I have the time, okay, I have the time because I have my first semester and second semester in Denmark. So I took the challenge and I told my supervisor, yes, I want to go ahead. Okay, I want to go ahead. And during those days, I mean, it's not like nowadays. I mean, like for example, like in Malaysia, you can see that many of you can just go for any courses. Okay, there's a lot of courses that out there. Okay, that you can just attend on how to conduct systematic review and so on. But 10 years ago, even in Denmark, I mean, there was no any um, special classes or special courses on how to how to write a systematic review paper. So I gone through the hardship, for example, by learning by myself. How did I learn systematic review by myself? Is through reading all these systematic review papers by myself. Okay, then that's how I learn. Okay, compared to you guys nowadays, of course, you have a lot of courses being offered. Okay, on how to conduct systematic review. There's a lot of courses, not only how to conduct systematic review, but how to write your thesis faster and So yes, there's a lot of option nowadays. Okay, so my intention actually to share you about my experience during my PhD life as a student is when you're doing your PhD studies or even your master studies, you need to get motivated. Okay, you need to get motivated in order to go on. Okay, to go on with your PhD projects or also your master's project. So you should always motivate yourself. Okay, you can get even motivated by your supervisors. I think the supervisors should be the important person in motivating you. Okay, they should be the because when I was doing my PhD, I got a full support from my supervisor. Okay, he gave me all the freedom. I mean, in conducting the research and even in terms of deciding on how many publications I want to publish and where should I send to which journal. All this freedom was given by my supervisor. Okay, so the motivation is an important factor for you to go on. Okay, with your PhD projects and also with your master's project. Okay, so towards in 2 years time, okay, I managed to publish a systematic review paper out of my PhD project. Okay, in just in 2 years time. So my field of research was on fear of crime. Okay, particularly in urban green spaces. Okay, another aspect that I would like to stress in here is that try to also look systematic review as a strategy, okay, or as a potential source in order for you to publish your paper, okay, as soon as possible. Because by the time you finish up your data collection and by the time you write a paper and submit, it will be already your third year or your fourth year. Okay, so try to consider. Okay, since because it's a requirement. Okay, it's a requirement from the university that you need to publish. In order for you to get graduated. Okay, you need to publish. I think 2 papers and so on. So try to even consider that. But while doing systematic literature review, you are also able to publish a paper. Okay, so use this as a strategy in terms of your publication. And you have to remember that when it comes to research, publication and research is part and parcel. Okay, they have to be together. I mean, publication is not something different. I mean, it's something which involves in a different process. They are part and parcel of a research. Okay, whenever you conduct a research, you need to publish towards the end, because publication actually is the way we researchers or academicians, we share the information among the peers. Okay, we share the information. Of course, we can share the information among the peers in so many ways. Okay, for example, you go for conferences, you present paper, you publish in your proceedings, we can even publish your findings in newspaper cuttings, in magazines, and so on. But journal paper, the reason actually most of us, I mean, as a researcher and also as an academician, we target for journal papers because journal paper is a venue that your write-up is being reviewed. Okay, it's reviewed. It's not just they publish whatever that you have written. There's a review process. So the review process will make sure that your write-up has some level of quality in that. Okay, because your paper will be reviewed by someone else. So review process is important, which makes your paper either it has some quality or not. Okay, so again, okay, try to think that if you include systematic review as part of your PhD project, okay, as a part of your PhD project, it can also enhances you to publish faster. Okay, to publish faster. Okay, so it's a Q1 journal. Okay, it's a Q1 journal. I managed to publish in a Q1 journal. Okay, so I didn't just stop there. Okay, after I got my PhD and then I joined UPM. I got a job at UPM, so I started to get all these postgraduate students coming in. Okay, so so it's the same thing. Okay, so I even practice the same thing even on my students. Okay, so to all my postgraduate students, my PhD students, and my master students, I will even tell them the same thing. Okay, I'll tell them, why not you start with a systematic review. Okay, so for example, this is my PhD student. She managed to even publish a systematic review out of a PhD project, and I think she managed to publish in her third year. Okay, in the third year, this is also a Q1 journal, and also my master's student. Okay, can you imagine? Okay, my master's student even managed to publish, okay, in a Q1 journal, and she also um, came with a review paper. So for this particular master student, I just told her, okay, I just told her the idea of why not, because of course, I mean, masters, because when it comes to uh, master studies, I mean, the scope is not it's not so big. Okay, it's not so big, but I did manage to advise her, why not you conduct a systematic review, okay, about your topic. Okay, why not you consider, and so on. So she took it seriously. Okay, she took it seriously. She was even delighted to learn about the method and so on, and she even managed to publish. Okay, she even managed to publish, and in fact, she managed to publish two papers. Two papers, both also are in Q1 journals. Okay, in Q1 journals. Okay, so the reason actually I'm showing you all these um, papers published by me and my students is to motivate you. Okay, to motivate that this is something that can be done. It is not something impossible. Okay, it's not something that impossible to be done. Okay, so you have to remember, when it comes to systematic review, okay, it can be even published by a PhD student or even a master student. Okay, because why? Because when we, okay, because it's not a review paper. Okay, it's not a review paper. So again, review paper is always written by those who have, they're writing based on their experiences. Okay, they're writing based on their experiences. That's the thing. When you read a review paper, it's always will be their own thoughts. I mean, the can be the thoughts from some of these professors in the field. Okay, in a particular field and so on. It will be their own thoughts and so on. Okay, so but systematic review, I mean, it's a research by itself. Okay, it's a research by itself, because in systematic review you have a certain procedures that need to be followed. Okay, a certain procedure. So you have like step 1, step 2, step 3, and step 4, and so on. So you have a certain steps to be followed, or certain procedures. So basically this makes that systematic review is a method. Okay, it's a research method. Of course, like some of the lecturers, okay, during the viva, like when my students, they presented during the viva, they have included systematic review as part of the method, okay, as part of the chapter 3. But most of the lecturers, they don't agree. Okay, they don't agree, because they say, even though it was a systematic review, but it is still considered a literature review. So you don't include that in your chapter 3. But personally, I mean, if you ask my opinion, when a student conducts a systematic review, that is a method, that is a process that need to be highlighted in the method section. Because when it comes to systematic review, you have like a certain rules that you need to follow. Okay, you have step 1. After step 1, you have step 2, step 3, and this need to be explained in your chapter 3. Okay, chapter 3 in your method section in your thesis. But some lecturers, they don't agree. Okay, they don't agree that it should be there in a method section. Okay, because most of them, they still think that systematic review is also a literature review. Okay. Okay, so this is also she also managed to publish in one journal. Okay, so before I go further, any questions from you?
Any question, guys? Don't be shy. This is a chance to ask. Nope.
Thank you, doctor.
Okay,
Everything
yeah.
is clear.
Sorry.
Under control.
Okay. Okay, so no questions. Okay. So let us just move to our next part. Okay. So when we conducting, okay, conducting research can be sometimes it can be very daunting. Okay, especially for those of you who are not very familiar with the research process, how you want to gather your data, and so you have all this kind of fear, actually, or I would say like confusion. Okay, so there's a few distinctions that it can be make it easy, actually. Okay, So like first and foremost, research can be either, okay, it can be either a primary or can be even a secondary. So primary research generally involves gathering data. Okay, for example, like in our context, okay, in social sciences, okay, in our faculty, normally what we do, we go out and we interview people and so on. So this is what we call as a primary data, where you collect the data directly from the subjects or from the samples, for example, public and so on, and where you need some perhaps some ethical approval if it is needed. Whereas in secondary research, it involves data gathering that already exists. Okay, already exists. For example, um, um, data that we can get from any journal papers, uh, conference proceedings, books, and so on. So, because secondary data does not include any uh, talking directly to any human subjects or generating new ideas or new data, so it does not approve or need any ethical approval. Okay, ethical. So, in systematic review, okay, systematic review, okay, is one of the many research methods that can be used to conduct secondary research. So systematic review is actually, it comes under a secondary research, where you do that research based on documentation, based on documents, for example, from journal papers, can be from books and anything. Okay, so systematic literature, systematic review is a form of what we call as a secondary research. Okay, so um, in systematic um, review, okay, so in systematic literature review, is different from what we that we normally do, or we call it as a traditional narrative literature review. Okay, it's different. It's different. Okay, you might be asking, okay, what's the difference between the normal literature, okay, the traditional narrative kind of literature that we do compared to systematic literature review. So a literature review, okay, the one that we do, okay, normally, okay, provides a summary of the literature, okay, in the field proposed to the topic of research. For example, if you want to do study, for example, okay, if I take my PhD topic was on fear of crime in urban green spaces, so it's about urban. You will only find research topic about fear of crime in urban green spaces. So it will be like a general synthesis, okay, general synthesis of what has been done and whom, and also by highlighting what past research tells us about the topic, and also to identify gaps in the research topic. So this is what is done in our normal traditional narrative kind of literature review. Okay, we can still find the gaps. Okay, we can still find the gaps, and we can still also even know who did what and so on. But the difference in systematic um, literature review is because systematic literature review, it begins with an intention. Okay, you have a purpose actually. Why are you conducting a systematic review? Okay, you must have a reason actually. There's a reason. Okay, it's very focused. Okay, for example, if you take the example of my PhD study, okay, I did on fear of crime in urban green spaces. So it's very focused. In systematic review, you have the intention. I have the intention to find only papers regarding on fear of crime, but not only fear of crime, but fear of crime in urban green spaces. Okay, so it is very specific. Okay, because and this scope again, it goes again to the your study objective and also your research question. What are you going to find, and so on. Okay, what is your objective and so on. So it goes back to how can you answer back your research question and so on. So this includes identifying, okay, types of information that will be included in your review. Okay, for example, you can get information, for example, from journal papers, policy documents, chapter in books, and so on. Okay, so and criteria will be included. Okay, when you find all this information, okay, you must have a criteria. This is what we call as inclusion criteria. Okay, before we do the searching, okay, the information, excuse me. Okay, so before you find for all this information, of course, you will need to set some inclusion criteria. What kind of papers do you want to find? Okay, so like in my case, of course, I want to find those papers related to fear of crime in urban green spaces. And on top of that, I also have other criteria. I want only those journal papers published in the English language only. Okay, English language only. So you have all these criteria, okay, to ensure the inclusion of potential pieces of work such as review, types of data to be included, okay, types of information, and other also other specific information. Okay, as I said before, for example, you want to only review, okay, those papers published perhaps, okay, for example, only in the Mandarin, in Mandarin language, okay, Mandarin language. So you have in systematic literature review, you need to set all these criteria. Okay, you need to set all these criteria before you even do the paper searching or document searching. You need to have all these criteria actually. Okay, so the function of doing this systematic literature is of course to identify and summarize the whole thing. Okay, the output, actually basically the output after you have done your systematic review, it will be like a matrix. Okay, it will be like a matrix of table. I'll be showing you later. Okay, it will be a matrix of table of what are the papers that you have reviewed and so on. And in that matrix you will find all these gaps. What are the gaps? Okay, for example, you will find like a pattern. Okay, for example, like in my to my research, my PhD research, okay, I managed to find about 44, okay, 44 research papers, okay, regarding about fear of crime in urban green spaces. So I went through each of these papers one by one, okay, and I summarize all the findings in a table form or matrix, okay. So by looking at this matrix, you can know, basically you will find the gaps even more clearly, okay, what are the gaps and so on. So you'll be even more clearly actually.
After we lost your voice.
Hello, Dr. Sri. You cannot hear your voice.
Yeah.
Oh,
Can you hear me?
yeah, yeah, yes.
Okay. 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 So let me just go briefly. Okay, what are the steps involved? Okay, when you conduct a systematic review. Okay, let me just go through. Of course, um, you need to set. Okay, you need to have this search strategy. Okay, search. I mean, where do you find all these documents actually? Okay, so you can use all these search engines. For example, Google Scholar, Scopus, Web of Science, and PubMed, and there are also other search engines and so on. Okay, so you can have all these search engines, Web of Knowledge, Science Direct, and all these things. So these are the electronic journal databases where you can find all these journal papers. You can find even other documentation and so on. For example, in Google Scholar, you can even get other documentation such as books and so on. Okay, so in the search strategies, of course, you need to get some keywords actually. These keywords should be related to your title of your, for example, your PhD title. Okay, and so you need to key in all these words in order to find papers related to your scope. Okay, to your scope, and you even need to set all this time would be even better, because in systematic review we want to highlight something updated information. Okay, for example, if now if this year is 2021, if you do a systematic review, it would be better if you take those papers which have been published for the past 5 years or 10 years, would be better. Okay, do not take those papers which have been published even longer. Okay, just focus on those papers published between 5 to 10 years ago. Okay, that would be better, because these are the papers which are very latest actually. These are so-called the latest papers. Okay, so the first step you need to find. How do you find all these papers, research papers? Of course, by using all these databases. Okay, Google Scholar, Scopus, Web of Sciences, and so on. Okay, okay. Any question on this? Any question on the search strategy?
Guys, any question, guys? All good?
No.
So far, no question.
So far, no
Okay.
question.
Yes,
Okay.
doctor. Sorry, doctor, I
Okay.
have a question.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Ramadan Mubarak to you. And I would like to ask you, I am a student, PhD student in UPM University. As you know,
Okay.
we don't have any access about Web of Science. If I do my research only on Scopus and the Science Direct, that's enough or not? Thank you for...
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So it is sufficient. Okay. It is sufficient, but you need to explain about all these limitations in your paper. Okay. You need to explain. Okay. For example, okay, the literature search that you have done was based on, for example, only Scopus and also Web of Science, or only Scopus and Google Scholar and so on. So you need to mention about the electronic journal databases that you use. But my advice is it is better to include Web of Science, okay? Because like for example, in those papers, I mean that published in Scopus, of course you can find in Google Scholar and so on. But not all the papers published in Web of Science can be found in Scopus and so on. Okay, some of the papers are only in Web of Science. Okay, so it would be better to get the facilities, the Web of Science, in order for you to conduct systematic review. Okay, it will be better because when you do when you use all these good search engines, your search will be even better. Okay, your search will be better. But I'm not sure. I mean, as a postgraduate student, don't you all have this access at our library? I mean, for using Web of Science and so on. Yeah, yeah, I think. Okay, so I think, yeah, as a student, I think as a postgraduate student, you have the access to use Web of Science. Okay, you have the access. Okay, as a postgraduate student, perhaps in terms of the passwords and so on, I think perhaps you need to deal with the library, UPM library. But I think all of you as a student and even as a staff, UPM staff and also as a student, we have the access. Okay, we have the access Web of Science and so on. Okay, Web of Science and even to use Scopus and so on. Okay, so the search strategy is good because if you don't use Web of Science, then perhaps when you submit your journal paper, the reviewer might be asking you why didn't you Web of Science? You know, why didn't you Web of Science? Because there are even high impact journals or better journals in Web of Science compared to Scopus. Okay, so the reviewer might be even asking ask you that your review, your search engines, why you just use Google Scholar and Scopus, why not Web of Science? Because because most of the good journals are published under in Web of Science. Okay, so in order to make your search a complete one, so I would advise you to include Web of Science. Okay, Web of Science, Scopus, Scopus as part of your main electronic journal databases. Okay.
Thank you, doctor.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Thank you. Okay. Next. Okay. Next. So now, okay, after you have searched, okay, after you have put in all these keywords and so on, okay, you have put in all these keywords related to your study and so on. So now you have a lot of papers, okay, from the search process, okay, from the search engine. For example, you have gathered about 220 papers, okay, 220 papers. So of course, you're not going to use all the 220 papers. You need to select, okay, you need to select. For example, okay, this is based on the criteria you have set. Okay, for example, like if I take my example, okay, in my systematic review, I have set a criteria that I will only include journal papers only. Journal papers written on written in English. Okay, only English journal papers are included. Okay, all these literature reviews, conceptual articles, conference proceedings, masters and doctoral thesis, and also all these government reports and all these things will be excluded. Okay, so so this is what we call the screening process. You have to screen all the, from the 220 articles, you have to screen them. Okay, because some of you might find duplicates. Okay, you might find same article, because some of the articles you can find in Web of Science, some of the article, the same article you can also find in Scopus. So these are what we call duplicates. So you need to remove all these duplicates and perhaps the other forms of documents and so on. Like, so if I take the example of my systematic review that I did, I only included journal papers. I only included journal papers in English only, that is related to my field of study. The other forms of documents that I found, like books, conference proceedings, chapter in books, all these were removed. Okay, all these were removed. So the authors, for example, me, did not include any articles on the methodological ground, okay, as the total number of articles. Okay, so you have to follow, you must have the inclusion criteria. Okay, the inclusion criteria. What are the criteria that makes you to pick this journal? What are the criteria that makes you to choose this article, not this article? So you need to even set a criteria. Okay, a criteria. For example, if you want only those papers in Mandarin, then you just go for it. Go for only those journals published in the Mandarin language. Okay, in Mandarin. Okay, if you want only English, then you can. But if you're not bothered about the languages, okay, if you're not bothered, then you can just remove the language criteria from your selection criteria. Means that you're taking all types of papers in all languages. But remember, for example, okay, remember, if you are a researcher and you want to do a systematic review and you're not bothered about the language, okay, it's fine, but you have to remember, for example, okay, if for example, if me, I can't read Mandarin, okay, if I want to include all the papers in all sorts of languages, it's fine, but you have to make sure that you are able to read the paper. Okay, if the paper is in Mandarin, you should be able to read, okay, or someone else perhaps maybe can read, okay, for you the paper, because you need to analyze why the language of these documents are important, because you need to analyze each of the papers thoroughly. Okay, thoroughly. That's the reason for us to include all this, whether is it should be an English-based journal or Mandarin-based journal or in Arabic and so on. So if you want to include, okay, all sorts of journal, it's fine, but make sure that you are able to understand and also able to get the gist out of all these papers which were not written in English. You should be able to read them. Okay, read them. Okay. Any questions? I saw a question very fast. Can you just ask me? Yeah.
Yeah, so one question here. Who is H? Can you ask your question? I just saw her. No, H, only H.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good morning.
I
Good morning.
saw. Yes,
Sorry.
morning. Yeah.
Good morning, Dr. Sri. I was one of your master student. It's an honor to be your student in master now.
Thank you.
So my question is about the setting criteria. You said, for example, I only choose the English journal papers. So would it be enough for my research? Or, for example, sometimes I need to open up the research in order to be updated. So is it choosing, for example, choosing English papers is enough for the systematic review? Enough resources, I mean. Thank you, doctor.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yes, that's a good question. Okay. So So where do you actually stand? Okay, where do you stand? So the issue in here is, okay, if you wanted to include that paper, okay, that particular paper, but you have to, so it depends, okay, it depends. Like in my case, I only want those articles from so-called this good journals, okay, good journals. So I mean, so the criteria is already there, okay, so the criteria is already there, and it's only should be written in English and so on. It is fine, okay, it's not wrong if you want to take, for example, a journal paper which is published in Arabic or in Mandarin or in Turkish and so on. So it's fine, but you have to make sure that you have the capability, okay, to understand what was written. Okay, that's the issue here. For example, if I can't read Mandarin, okay, I can't read Arabic, okay. So it's if you include these papers, they are fine, but you should be able to analyze this paper, okay. Perhaps you can get someone else's help and so on, okay, but they should be even able to explain to you further what is the content of the paper and so on, because that's the reason of doing a systematic review. You need to dissect each of the papers that you have found. Okay, you have to dissect, you have to read thoroughly each of these papers one by one. Okay, so if you can't even understand the language, okay, I mean, of course, I mean, you know, you don't understand the whole thing. What are they saying? Okay, what are they saying? But of course, I mean, so this can be a form of limitation. Okay, this can be a form of limitation in your search. Okay, it is stated. Okay, it will be stated in your paper, in your systematic review paper, that only those paper, okay, published, for example, in English are taken, or you don't mention. If you don't mention at all, it means that you are also taking in, okay, these papers published in other languages. So it is fine. It is fine, but you have to make sure that you can analyze. Okay, it's not just taking in the paper just because of that paper it suits your topic, but you need to analyze. As a researcher, you need to go through the paper. Okay, you need to go through the paper. If the paper is written in Mandarin, so perhaps you can find someone who really good in Mandarin, and they can perhaps analyze. Okay, they can tell you the gist of the paper. Okay, of the paper. But if you can't, if you don't understand the language and so on, it would be even better if you just stick to English, because English is an international language. It is also fine. Okay, it is also fine. Okay, because it's understood. Okay, because we are not not many of us. I mean, we know many languages and so on. So that will be like a limitation for your search actually. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Hello,
Okay.
Doctor. I have a question.
Yeah,
Can
sure.
I ask
Yeah.
questions? Okay, my
Yeah,
name
sure.
is Ellie. Good morning, Doctor. My name is Ellie. I'm going to further my PhD for this coming semester. So my question is, how many citation for a journal that we can consider it as a good journal in order for me to go through it thoroughly? In your opinion, Doctor?
How many citations are considered
For
a good
a
journal?
journal, a good journal, so that we can choose it as a good journal. Then we can go through it thoroughly.
It depends. It depends on your field actually. Okay, if you I mean, you are referring to systematic review, isn't it?
Yes. Before
Okay.
we choose a journal, can we put a journal, like say this journal has 100 citation, so we consider it a good journal. So we can probably we can go through it thoroughly lah for our systematic literature review.
Okay. Okay. You see, when I say good journals mean, okay, when I use the word good journals mean, these are the journals that are being published in Web of Science and also Scopus. I mean, they are index journal. Okay, they are index journal. So index under Web of Science or Scopus. Okay, these are the journals that I consider as good journals. Okay, good journals. Okay, but when it comes to systematic review, okay, for example, if you see my field, okay, my topic, my topic of research, okay, for my PhD studies, it was on fear of crime, okay, fear of crime in urban green spaces. So it is it is not only on fear of crime, but it is on fear of crime in urban green spaces. So it's very specific. And at first, I found these difficulties in finding journals. Not many, okay, because I did find many articles on fear of crime, yes, but not fear of crime in urban green spaces, because my research topic was on urban fear of crime in urban green spaces. So when I did this systematic review, I only managed to find about 44 articles only. Okay, 44 articles only. So it is fine. It is based, it is actually, it depends on your research topic. Okay, research topic. For example, if you look at this, the history of systematic review itself, of course, I mean, systematic review, of course, I mean, this whole thing actually started from the medical field, okay, because they were into all the systematic review because they wanted to find all these evidence-based kind of research. For example, what is the latest articles on heart diseases and so on. So this whole idea of systematic review started with all these medical sciences, okay, medical sciences, because they were finding evidence-based, okay, evidence-based, particularly on these epidemiological sciences, right? For example, on how the disease spread and so on, okay, and in some of the literature review, I mean, if you have read, I even have found one systematic review, but this is, of course, I mean, in the field, like in the medical field, the review was conducted based on one paper. You know, the review was conducted based on one paper. Okay, so it's fine. It's fine. You can even do systematic review based on one paper. So what does it show? It shows that there's a lot of gaps in that research. There's a lot of gaps that many things have not been done. For example, different methods was not applied. You know, so you get an idea that there's too many, perhaps too many loops. Okay, there's still too many empty spaces, I mean, to be answered actually. So there's a lot of gaps. Okay, so in systematic review, it's not so much on the number of papers you review. Okay, it depends on your scope of your study. Okay, some like I think even my PhD student, I think when she did the systematic review was about 44, if not mistaken, about 44 journal papers. And then my master's student, because she was doing systematic review only on pocket parks, okay, only on pocket parks. So she managed to find only about, I think, 23 papers. And she managed to do a systematic review out of these 23 papers. Okay, 23 papers. So it's not the issue how many papers you manage to find and so on. It depends on the scope. If your scope is narrow, of course, you will tend to find even smaller numbers of papers. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much, Doctor.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So
Thank you, Ellie.
Ada question?
Muhammad Izwan Muhammad. Okay, one more question. Is it okay, Dr. Sri?
Sure. Yeah, go ahead.
Brother Izwan, can you ask?
Hello, Dr. Sri. All right. I
Hi.
heard that this SLR papers need some data to support the for the article. Is that true?
Some data. Can you repeat your question?
To develop this paper, I heard that they need some data to support this article. Means to put it inside the article. Is it true?
No.
Or just a glance through review?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I mean, it's not just a glance through kind of review. When it comes to, for example, if you manage to find about 35 papers, okay, 35 papers for your research topic, okay, you have to read through, okay, read through really thoroughly each of these paper one by one, okay, and I'll be showing out later. Normally, what we do after you have read all these papers, you will come out like a matrix, okay, like a table form. Like for example, paper one, what are the gaps, what are the research methods being used, and so on. So you will try to define, you will define each of these papers in a metric form, okay, in a matrix. So you don't need any other supportive data to support your findings actually.
I see.
Okay.
I think that I heard if the SLR needs some data is that one, because the data means some summary, summary from the each
Yes.
papers,
Yeah.
and some the quantity of the papers also need to be identified at the early stage. I think that one.
Yeah, that is what is meant by data. Data in here means what you found out from each of the papers that you have read actually. Okay, for example,
Okay.
if you manage to get about 35 papers, okay, based on your research topic, so you have to read. You have to read thoroughly. I mean, that's the actually that's the beauty of conducting systematic review compared to our traditional narrative kind of review, because you see in the narrative kind of way, of course, I mean we do read the paper, but we normally we don't read these papers thoroughly, and once you have done, for example after you have done with your paper one, you just leave them in for a week, and then you go to your paper two and paper three and so on. But in systematic review, you analyze what you have read actually. That's the beauty. You analyze and you put them in a table form, in a matrix, okay, in a matrix form, okay. What are the things that you have read? So everything is there, okay. Everything is being summarized actually, okay. If you ask, I mean, frankly, actually, there's no much difference actually, okay. There's no much difference between systematic review and also the narrative, the traditional way of doing literature review. There's not much different. The only difference is that in systematic review, we do everything very systematically. We put everything in table form, and then we have like a process. Step one, you do this. Step two, step three, and step four. Whereas in our traditional way of, we still do literature review, but we do very loosely. I mean, it's like, okay, I want to just read one paper this week, and then the following week you just read another paper. So it's not, there's no a systematic way, okay, a process, and we don't also normally summarize what we have read. Okay, so everything is just in our head. Okay, I have read this paper, that paper, paper number 3, this from Japan. So everything is just in your head. Okay, but in systematic review, we do it in a systematic manner. I mean, it is actually in a system actually. Okay, it is done systematically, and not only systematically, it is also recorded systematically. What you have read, you also record it. Okay, you will record it. Like, I have done review based on 35 papers. So that 35 papers will be recorded like in a matrix form or a table form actually. Okay, so you will get an idea towards the end of the day. You will see the whole picture. Okay, you will see the whole picture. For example, if you have reviewed 35 papers, so you will get the whole picture of what is going on now in this field. Okay, you will get a picture. What is the gap? What is the problem? And you will also get other patterns. For example, okay, from this table, if I look this table, it seems that many of about 80% of this research are being conducted only in the Western countries. Okay, still lack of research being done in our Asian context and so on. So that can be also your gap. That can be also your gap, lack of studies being done in I mean, that can be also your research issue. Okay, your issue, okay, or your problem statement. Okay, so that's the difference between systematic review compared to our traditional review. It's the same process, it's the same thing, only thing that in systematic review, we do it in a very systematic way, and we record them. We record what we have read. So that's the difference. That's the big difference actually between systematic review with the narrative kind of literature review.
All right, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sri.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Sri, you want to
Yes.
go on? We have another question. Is it okay, or you want to?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead with the question. Yeah, I mean, guys,
Okay.
if you have any question, you can just ask. don't put in the
Yep.
chat box because I'm so lazy to check
Never mind.
the chat box.
I will
Okay.
help you. Don't worry. I will help you. Don't worry.
Okay.
Okay, we have one question from Dr. Nurul Hayati binti Muhammad Zainal from PSK. Dr. Nurul Hayati, could you please ask a question if you want? Dr. Nurul Hayati?
Hi, Dr. Sri. From the explanation, some people decide that we can simply cut and paste the lead review in the thesis and name as the systemic review. What make these two differ greatly? Thank you.
Sorry, can you repeat? I can't hear actually.
All right, sorry. Some people decide, some of my students decide that we can simply cut and paste the literature review in the thesis, in the PhD thesis, and just name it as the systemic review, and they just try to have a go in any paper that accept the systemic review. So what make
Okay.
these two differs greatly? Thank you.
Okay. Of course. We don't. It's first of all, it's unethical. Okay. We don't practice this kind of things. Okay. When it comes, because you can't just cut and paste. Okay, you can't just cut and paste. Or get all these references from a thesis and so on. Because why? Because you must have because in order to conduct a systematic review, you need to have like a set of criteria. A set of criteria based on what you are picking this paper, based on what you are not selecting this paper. So you have a set of criteria. Okay, so you are born to all this all this set of criteria. So you cannot just go wildly and pick any of the papers actually. Okay, so all these papers will be selected based on a selected criteria. Okay, so that's the thing I say in our traditional kind of narrative literature review. You can just bring in all the papers and so on. Okay, you can bring in. Sometimes we even include those papers which are not directly related to our topic of research and so on. But in systematic review, before you even do the search, okay, the search, you have all the keywords. Okay, you have all the keywords. So you have already predetermined everything. Okay, I want to find only papers which have these, so and so and so and so keywords only. Okay, so you, of course, during the search, you'll be getting about like 500 articles or 200 articles, and the next process, what you have to do is you have to refine them. Okay, you have to refine them. Perhaps you have to reduce the number of papers by picking up, okay, only those papers that falls under the criteria that you have set. Okay, so for me, if you ask the question that can you just take and cut and paste from this, I don't think so. I don't think so, because when you publish your systematic review paper, you need to prove. You need to prove that these papers were found based on this set of criteria actually. But of course, okay, just as an additional, of course, when we do systematic literature review, okay, we might miss some of the papers. Okay, we might miss, and these other papers, so-called the other papers, can be added through the process of what we call it as a snowballing method. Yeah, of a snowballing method. Okay, so for example, that there's one or two papers that you didn't come across, okay, through the search process, but you found somewhere else. Perhaps you got recently from your friends or your lecturers and so on. So you can just also include these papers. So the way we include these papers into the systematic review is what we call as a snowballing. Okay, snowballing method. We just include them. Okay, based on all these kind of ways of getting the materials. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sri.
Yeah. Any questions? Any other
No more,
question?
no.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Okay. Let's move to the third part. Okay. So the second part, you have selected. Okay, you have selected your studies. Okay, or your papers based on the set of criteria and so on. You have selected. Okay. So after you have selected and so on, so now you wanted to, for example, okay, so from 200 papers, okay, from 200 papers, you managed to select all these papers based on your criteria and so on. So you deleted some of the papers. So you managed to find only about, for example, just say about 32 papers. Okay, so now you have only 32 papers. Okay, 32 papers. That is regarding about your topic of research. Okay, now what we have to do, this is the bigger the process where you need to dissect each of these papers one by one. Okay, you need to select and read thoroughly each of these paper. Okay, so normally what we do is we present, okay, we present in a matrix form or in a table form like this. Okay, so if you can see that, for example, okay, I have arranged all those papers that I have found. Okay, if you see, okay, table 2, summary of the findings. So I managed to find about 48, okay, 48, okay, 48 papers, 48 papers related to fear of crime in urban green spaces. So what I did, okay, so what I did was I need to read, okay, I need to read each of these papers, for example, and I arrange all these, okay, the information that I got from each of these article in such a way, okay, such a way, for example, who's the author, that the paper was, I mean, the research was conducted where, either in US or in China or in Japan and so on, and then, for example, what kind of gender, okay, did they involve both male and females or just male alone, okay, and how did they collect the data, okay, and the sample size, the data analysis, and also the findings. Okay, so this is the way we create the matrix. Actually, it's a summary. Okay, basically this is a summary. Okay, so if you can see that the way, so Nassar, okay, for example, Nassar 1982, so that is the first paper, the second paper by Schroeder 1982, and then until, so I do this, okay, I do this way until the paper number 48. So you have to read. So just imagine the amount of time that is required to read all these 48 papers. Okay, so you need to read thoroughly each of these papers. Okay, and once you have done with such a matrix, so you will get an idea. Okay, you can, I mean, is visually you will get this idea that, okay, so in general, that most of these studies related to fear of crime in urban green spaces have been conducted, perhaps, for example, in the US. Okay, in the US, and many of the studies, it seems that they were focusing, so much into the quantitative part. Okay, the quantitative way of collecting the data. Okay, not so much on the qualitative, but most of the research are being conducted based on the quantitative, okay, way of data collection, and what kind of stimulus. I mean, so in most of these papers, they use what? They use images, okay, images, for example, like photographs, and then the sample size are not so big. So you can bring all this information in your discussion, okay, in your discussion, that majority of these studies on fear of crime in urban green spaces are conducted, for example, by using what kind of stimulus. For example, are they using photographs? Are they using real landscapes? Okay, for example, are they using drawings and so on? Okay, so these are some of the data. Okay, some of the data that you gathered by reading the papers, which you can include later. So this is considered like a result. Okay, this is considered like a result. Okay, which you can include later in your discussion, the discussion of the systematic review paper. Okay, okay. Any question on this table?
So Dr. Sri, okay.
Yeah.
Moderator want to ask.
Okay,
So,
moderator.
so not only we're focusing on the findings, we can also find the gaps, which mean between the sample characteristic, the data collection, the landscape stimulus. We can find the gap within that. Is it?
Yes.
Or is
Yeah.
it we just
Yeah.
focusing on?
Yeah. So you can even get other information. Okay. Like, for example, like in here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, it's only 7 studies. Okay, but there's a long list actually. Okay, there's a long list. It consists of 48 papers. Okay, so when you have a look at this, the whole matrix. Okay, the whole matrix, you will see like a pattern. Okay, like a pattern that on the sample size that being used, what kind of sampling method that most of these researchers have used, what kind of data analysis they have used, and what are the findings? What are the findings? Or you can even say that, oh, it seems that majority of the papers that are being reviewed, they were only focusing on females. Okay, so not many were focusing on men, because I mean, if you follow the theory of behavior, men's have even, women, females have more fear compared to men. So because of that, most of these research are just based on female's opinion, not male opinion. So you can have this kind of arguments actually. Okay, you can even discuss. And not only that, even in terms of respondent, what kind of respondents? Who are the respondents in most of their studies? Are they university students? You know, so you see, so if many of these studies are just using university students, of course, I mean, you can in your discussion, you can even add things like many of the findings of these studies are just based on the opinion given by university students. So perhaps the findings from these studies cannot be generalized. Okay, because they are still university students. I mean, they are not the common public. Okay, so but when you do systematic review, you will be getting all these kind of patterns of questions and so on. Okay, so you can use all these extra data from each of these papers in your discussion later. Okay, particularly in your when you are writing your systematic review paper actually. Okay.
Right. Thank you, Razri.
Yeah.
We have one
Yeah.
question from Azran
Okay.
Mansur. Brother Azran Mansur, can you please ask your question, please? Brother Azran Mansur.
Hello, hi, Dr. Sri.
Ah, yeah.
I just have one question. Is it necessary, in your opinion, that the author need to state any of the review protocol that they use, for example, Prisma, Roses, or Cochrane, or any established guidelines that they refer to structure their SLR writing, or this is just optional for them? Thank you.
No, it's a must. Okay, it's a must. But that will be discussed in the method section actually. Okay, that will be discussed in the method section. Okay, so it's a must. Okay, it's a must in the systematic review paper. Either you want to use what kind of method in collecting these papers. Okay, so I will just this was your question. Okay, so it will be better. Okay, so we use a system, okay, called Prisma. Actually, Prisma, this is Prisma is actually it's a short for preferred reporting items for systematic review and meta-analysis. So it is known short as Prisma. Prisma is the system actually. Okay, it's a system you conduct the systematic review. Okay, it's a system. It is a system which was established by Liberty. Okay, in 2009. Okay, in 2009. Okay, and what I even explained earlier, what is also considered Prisma. Okay, it is also considered. It is the processes that involved in Prisma. Of course, when we say Prisma, it's a method or it's a system. Okay, and the first part, of course, it involves like search strategies and then how you find all these articles and so on. Okay, so we use a system called Prisma. Okay, when I did my systematic literature review, okay, in 2011 and so on. During those days, I mean, Prisma was just developed. Okay, so in my paper, if you see in my systematic literature review paper, I did not use the word Prisma. Okay, because during those days the word Prisma was not there. Okay, but the process that involved in Prisma is already there. It already has been established. Okay, you have to create your criteria first, and then after you create your criteria, you need to do the searching, the search strategy. After you do the search strategy, perhaps you have to delete some of the papers. So all these processes are actually is already in Prisma. Only thing that when I did my systematic review paper, the name Prisma was not there yet. Okay, it has been I mean, it was developed in 2009, but when I did in 2011, the word Prisma was not very famous yet. But compared to now, I mean, even my PhD student, she did her systematic review, she used the word Prisma, okay, because it is being introduced. Okay, so Prisma is basically the method or the system that we use in systematic review. Okay, so what are the processes that involve actually? Okay, so if you see, these are the processes. Normally, it involves 4 4 layers, okay, as what I have said before, okay, identification, okay, identification, okay, or what we call as the search strategy. You find for the articles, okay, the search articles, okay, that falls under the phase of identification. Okay, so we have altogether 4 phases in Prisma. Okay, identification, you have to identify the journal papers, okay, the articles, and then you have to go through a screening process. Okay, means that you remove all the duplicates. Okay, remember that I told you you might be finding the same paper in Scopus and also in Web of Science. So you have to remove the duplicates. You have to remove all this duplicate. You need to do the screening. Okay, the screening process. And then you have the process that we call eligibility. Okay, eligibility in here means, okay, full tell articles assessed for eligibility means what kind of papers are they following the criteria that you have set or not. Okay, are they following the criteria? For example, you in the earlier part you said that you only want for example journal papers published in English. So you have to remove all those papers which is not in English and so on. Okay, so and towards the end is included. Okay, studies included. Okay, what are the studies that included in your following your criteria will be included as part of your systematic review. Okay, so this is was the flow diagram. Okay, or these are the processes that involve. Okay, and you need to give, okay, this image. Okay, you have to use this image in your paper, in your systematic review paper. But now it seems that Prisma, okay, they have the updated version. Okay, they have the 2020 updated version. Okay, if you look, okay, I've just put here as section A and section B. So section A is what you get in your Prisma 2009 version. Okay, but in Prisma 2020 version, you have an additional part which is the B. Okay, the B, part B. Okay, there's no, it's not so much difference. The only thing is that part A are those journals or articles that you gathered through search engines, okay, through search engines. And part B means that it's an identification of new studies via other methods, okay, that they can be through other methods. For example, you managed to find a paper through a website or through an organization or through the snowballing method and so on. So this is what is meant by the part B. Okay, so it is more, I mean, so the Prisma, the flow chart, it is more, I mean, it's more, it has been updated. Okay, basically, it has been updated. Previously, okay, previously, this is what we do. Okay, this is what we do. Okay, we just follow, okay, from A to Z, from identification until the included part. This is what we do. Okay, what we do. But now they have the revised version. Okay, they have the Prisma 2020 version where they have included another part, another section where you can also include papers that you have found from through other methods. Okay, so there's also some way. This part B will be like more on like perhaps like through a snowballing kind of method. So even the snowballing kind of method, there's some they have created in a more systematic manner. Okay, so this is just the latest, okay, updated version of the Prisma method. Okay, so they have part A and part B. Okay, I mean, I have just for the sake of presentation, I've just included, okay, part A, only part A was the 2009 version, and part A and part B is the latest version. So after this, if you wanted to do a systematic review paper, make sure that in your systematic review paper, you have this diagram. Make sure that you have this diagram in your systematic review paper and use the latest form. Okay, 2020, the latest template, 2020 template. I mean, if you just type in your Google Prisma 2020 template, you will just get this picture. Okay, so you can just download. Okay, it's in PDF and also in Word. So you can just download the Prisma, the 2020 version, and you can just cut and paste for your paper or for your thesis and so on. Okay. Okay. Any questions on this? On Prisma?
Any more question, guys? Nope.
Good morning, Doctor.
Yes, morning.
I'm Owen. I'm just wondering whether this Prisma 2020, if I return the SLR last year, then this one is not applied to it, right?
No, it's still fine actually. It's still
Okay.
fine because when I see that there's no much differences. The only differences is that this part B, I mean, it only shows that it's basically it can be also be considered as like a snowballing kind of way. Okay, so they have like a specific place for identification of new studies via other methods. Okay, so in part A means that you only able to find all these papers through your search engines, but in part B it is other than your search engine, so it can be from the websites, from your organizational reports, and or citations searching, or I mean this is so part B is basically like a snowboarding kind of thing. Okay, so it is not based on the search engines. It is based on, like, for example, like snowballing. You find suddenly you find an information from a website. Suddenly you found a document from your organization and so on. So they just add another part, which is part B, which it looks more in a more systematic kind of thing actually.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, so Owen, so I would advise you to, I mean, you can just stick to your 2000 version, but 2009 version, but make sure that in your write-up, in your journal, you have to say that this study was conducted based on Prisma 2009 version. Okay?
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay.
Any more, guys? No. Okay, that's three. You can.
Okay.
All right.
So once you have identified, okay, identify all these work. For example, we have found 35, okay, 35 research papers regarding about your topic and so on. So what next you need to do is you need to read, okay, you need to read, and you need to form like a team, okay. You need to create your own team, okay, your own team. So in the analysis phase, okay, in the analysis phase, you need to categorize your findings, and also look for some commonalities and also areas of different, okay, will be useful when you do on your findings, and you want to identify, okay, what are the themes that emerge actually. Okay, for example, this was again taken from my systematic review. Okay, so by going through all these um, the papers, okay, the papers, I found like a theme. Okay, I found like a theme that what are the factors, okay, what are the factors that evoke, for example, the fear in green spaces. So I try to relate with the theory that I use for my research topic, and also with my connect it with my research question, and also my um, objective. Okay, because one of my objectives, I want to know what are the factors that evoke the fear of crime, and so on. So this is the place where you create a team. Okay, how can you relate back? Remember the table one that I showed earlier, that is just a summary. Okay, a summary of each of this paper. Okay, this paper was conducted in Japan. It was conducted in which year, what was the sample use, and that is just a summary. Okay, a basic data from each of the thing. But the main part is this the second table. Okay, how does this systematic review, it connects to your study? How does it connect to your study? So in this table, okay, I wanted to show, because I want to connect back fear of crime in green spaces, connect it back to my research objective, and also my research question, and so on. Because one of my research question is, I want to know what are the factors that evoke the feeling of fear in urban green spaces. Okay, so I want to connect it back. So in order to connect it back, I managed to find all these things. For example, I created like a team. Okay, so the fear in urban green spaces can be because of personal attributes, can be because of social attributes, and I have another one more because the table is so long. I even have physical attributes and so on. So this is how you create a thematic kind of table, and this table is, of course, it should suit your objective and your research question. Okay, for example, the meaning of plus in here means, okay, so paper by this Nasser 1983. Okay, they have proved that gender have an implication. Okay, gender have is a factor that evokes the fear of crime in green spaces. Okay, and if you see the sign of negative, it shows that, for example, West over 1985 negative. So that study shows that age has a negative effect on fear of crime. Okay, so this is how you create like a thematic kind of thing. But of course, you have to relate it back to your objective. What was your research questions? What was your research objective? You have to relate back. Okay. Okay. So okay. Before that, any questions on this?
Of fun, no.
Okay. 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 So the final step is of this systematic review is to you have to interpret. Okay, interpret your findings and bring them back to your research questions. Okay, what do they tell us about the topic? Okay, the topic. Are there any gaps in the research? Are there any contradiction in your field? Okay, you might find that some of the studies are contradicting to the theory that you're going to use in your PhD project or your master's project. And what are the recommendations that you can offer? Because you have read, okay, you have dissected, okay, all these papers. You have read about all these 35 papers that you found. Okay, so basically you will get a general idea what are the recommendations that you can offer towards the end of this review. Okay, towards the end of your paper and so on. So is there a need? Okay, is there a need for future research? Is there any best practices that being identified where you can highlight? Okay, perhaps by reading the all these papers, you might also get this idea. For example, this study being conducted in China in year 2011. According to this research, in order to reduce the fear of crime in greenhouse space, okay, they have these few strategies. So you can even take all these strategies on how to reduce the fear of crime. Okay, so you can get all these like even best practices that being identified from the papers that you have reviewed actually. So the reader should be able to understand, okay, what you did, how you did it, means that the process using the Prisma method, and also the relation to your research questions and the research question that you were investigating. Okay, so basically that's the whole thing. Okay, that's the whole thing about the systematic literature review that I would like to check with you all. Of course, I mean it's not very thorough. I mean I didn't go step by step what you need to do at this step 1, step 2, okay, and step 3. Okay, my intention was just to introduce to you all, okay, how you can use or you can bring in systematic literature review, okay, into your PhD or master's project. Okay, so that was my intention. So I hope perhaps now many of you all, okay, perhaps you get an idea. Okay, you have a general idea of why you should do a systematic literature review. Okay, and how are you going to do it? Okay, for your PhD, because the other thing is that trust me that if you have done a systematic review, okay, a systematic review, because since you have done a thorough review, the discussions that you create, okay, for the systematic review paper, you can even apply, okay, you can even use that discussion for your thesis section. You can use that for your thesis and even for your other papers. Okay, this was actually easier even for my PhD and master students. Okay, once they have done your systematic review, because once you have done your systematic review, you generally know, okay, which paper have said this and so on, what is the gap, where this gap happened, who have said this, who have said that gender have no effect on the fear, who have said that physical environment has a deep effect on fear and so on. So for your discussion, okay, for your discussion, you already have a basic understanding. Okay, you already have everything in your head. Okay, you know that who have said this, who have said that, and so on. So what you do for your next papers, which is related to your research and so on, you can just use the information that you have already discussed in your systematic review for your other papers and so on. And this is also can be applied for your thesis. Even for your discussion part, it will be very helpful. Okay, once you have done with your systematic review, it will be very helpful for the discussion process for your thesis and also for your discussion for your other papers along the way. Okay, so with that, I would like to say, good luck. Okay, good luck to all of you. Okay, especially those postgraduate students. Okay, don't give up, and then get motivated. Okay, get motivated uh, from your supervisors and also from your friends and so on. Okay, so that's all, Mr. Fabian.
Okay. Thank you very much, Dr. Sri. We have okay. Now we open for Q&A, the official one. Okay. Um, all right. So we have one more question by Brother Azran Mansoor. Brother Azran, can you ask a question to Dr. Sri?
Hi, Dr. Sri.
Hi.
Just another question. What is the main key difference between SLR writing in journal article and that we write in our LR chapter in our thesis? Or it is just the same one?
Okay. Um, it's the same. Okay, it's the same, but the one that we write for our thesis, it's even more broader actually. Okay, it's even more broader because when it comes to systematic review, we are focusing only on the issue, the topic of our research. Okay, but when it comes to literature review in our thesis for our chapter 2, it's not only our research topic, but we are also discussing about the theory involves. Okay, the theory involves. We even have literature review on the methods that we are going to use and so on. So it's not only the literature review on the issue, but also the literature review on other parts of our study. So that is the difference between our chapter 2 on literature review compared to what is systematic literature review. But of course, the big chunk, okay, the big chunk you can still extract, okay, you can still extract from your systematic review. But only thing that, of course, in our chapter 2, we don't just write concerning about our topic only. Okay, we also write about other issues. For example, what are some potential methods that we wanted to use, what are the issues in our literature review, and we also, in our chapter 2, we also write about the theories or the models that related to our research topic. So that's the difference actually. That's the difference.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. We have another Brother H. You want to ask question? Sorry, I didn't remember your
Sorry,
name. Sir.
my name's sorry. Thank you, Dr. Sri. My name is Hamo.
Hamuk,
Doctor,
yes, Hamuk, yes.
thank you. Remind me. Mathematic table, please. I have one question.
Yes, please. Hamud, you want to ask question?
Sorry, I'm asking Doctor to refer back to the slide that shows the second table, which is thematic table.
Okay,
Sorry, Doctor.
Okay, yeah, this table, yeah.
Yeah, so when I come up with the 39 papers that relates to my research or study, and for example, that you choosing one of them like Nasser 1983, then he said that the gender affects the crime of fear.
Yeah.
But although the research has been done in somewhere far away from my research area, does it affect my study or no? For example, the research was done in USA, but mine here in Asian countries. So does it affect the gender of those area and this area, my research, or no?
Okay, no. Okay, no. The answer is no, because this my the topic. Okay, the topic is related to what we call as a it's an environmental psychology. Okay, or environmental behavioral studies actually. So basically, when we for example, when we discuss about the issue of fear, it's a general fear. Okay, it's a general fear. Okay, the fear in America or in Japan or in Malaysia, it's still the same. Okay, the factors that evokes the fear, it will be the same. For example, if you see a snake in Malaysia, of course we even get the fear. If you see any snakes, for example, in US, of course those people in US, they will also have this fear. But what makes the difference from one region to another region is perhaps because of the culture, or perhaps of the level of fear. Okay, but in most of these cultures, the fear is there. Okay, for example, if we compare fear of crime, okay, fear of crime in Asian context compared to the Western context, of course, Western context, particularly like for example in countries like Europe, okay, because countries in Europe in Europe, they have a very low crime rate. Okay, so when they have very low crime rate, most probably they might have a very low level of fear, but the fear is still there. Okay, the fear among the Europeans and the fear among, for example, among Malaysians are still there, but it only differs in terms of the level of the fear. Okay, perhaps Asians, we feel even more. The fear level is even higher compared to the fear among Europeans, because the crime rate in Asia, for example, is it's higher compared to, for example, a crime rate in Denmark or Sweden and so on. Okay, but in general, okay, as a human being, all of us, we share some certain basic qualities. Okay, some certain basic qualities. But okay, you have raised a very good question. Okay, but perhaps you can even discuss about this matter from the cultural perspective, perhaps. Okay, so in your discussion part, you can either perhaps discuss generally. Okay, for example, you can just say that, okay, Nasser, for example, Nasser 1983 shows that the gender factor is very strong. Okay, on evoking the fear. But perhaps then perhaps you can add in more. Okay, you can add in more. Perhaps you can say that, oh, the context of gender in Asia perhaps is different from context. But in general, the fear is same. Okay, because as a human being, no matter you're from which culture and so on, as a human being, we have all these basic emotions actually. Okay, if you see like for example, happy, sad, and fear, all these are considered like a basic emotion. Okay, but what it differs is perhaps in terms of the level. Okay, the level of fear might be different in Europe. The level of fear might be even different compared to in tropical countries like Malaysia. Okay, so but in general, we share the same kind of attributes. Okay, we share the same kind of attributes actually.
Thank you, doctor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sri. Thank you very much, Brother Hamud.
Yeah.
Anyone, do you have any more questions to ask? Take this opportunity, guys.
Oh, yeah, more Dr. Sri, I do have a question.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Dr. Sri,
yeah, sure.
The literature review is moving that means right, like search strategies, research and like structure compared to the traditional literature that focus on with steps. Am I right? I need to like about all these the what has been said.
Okay. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So if you see the main difference between these two things is that in systematic review, okay, so we are only doing all these processes or the procedures in a more systematic manner. Okay, so it is done in a step-by-step kind of way, and also we have all these criteria which limits us actually. So it's not, we don't do a very wide kind of literature review where we normally do in our traditional narrative kind of systematic, traditional narrative kind of literature review, where we just take information from everywhere. Okay, but in systematic review, we have like a set of criteria that we have to predetermine, okay, before you even do the search strategies and so on. So you have like certain criteria. Okay, I want only papers related to fear of crime in green spaces only. Okay, so all those papers, like for example, fear of crime in big cities, are eliminated. Okay, because why? Because you have already put all the criteria. You want only those papers on fear of crime in urban green spaces only. And then perhaps you can even add on more. Okay, I want only those journal papers published in English language only. Okay, so this can be all. So you have all these criteria which restricts you. Okay, so you only pick only certain journal papers. Okay, compared to what we do like in our traditional way, we just take and we just get from all sorts of sources and so on. Okay, so in a systematic review, it is more like so that's the thing. I mean, I would always regard systematic review as a research. Okay, it's a research because why it's a research? Because you have like a step-by-step kind of way. Okay, for example, like if you go out and collect your data, for example, you want to interview your samples. So that's also what you do in your step 1, step 2, and step 3. So even systematic review should be considered as part of your research method, because basically it's a research. Okay, it is a research because you have like all these limitations. You only pick those certain types of literature reviews and so on. So you are basically doing a research, and it's not only that, you also thoroughly you read. Okay, you read and you summarize the whole thing like in a matrix form. Okay, in matrix form, and you also create themes out of it. Okay, so all these things that you are doing in a systematic review, it helps further, particularly in your discussion section for your thesis or even for your other papers. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. Guys, any more question you want to ask? Any more?
Hello.
Hello.
Dr. Sri. This is Zhao Jia. Hello,
yes.
I have a question. Are the systematic literature review papers only research papers? Do conference papers or theses or books need to be deleted? Is that the same in thesis literature review?
Okay. So my advice would be for systematic review. Okay, it would be good because systematic review is normally it's an evidence-based research. Okay, it's an evidence-based research. So we want to get all these sources from, all these papers from good sources actually. Okay, so when you say, okay, you want to take into account, for example, a paper published in a proceeding. Okay, so we know, okay, we know that the quality of the paper published in a conference proceeding. Okay, normally when we send a paper to a conference, okay, to be published in a conference proceeding, most of the time your paper won't be reviewed. Okay, they just take exactly, okay, from you, and they'll just publish in a conference proceeding. So that paper has not gone through a proper review process and so on. So there might be some mistakes and so on in that paper. Okay, so that's the thing. When we do systematic review, go for all these so-called good journals, because these good journals, they have gone through the review process, the proper review process. That's the thing. I mean, in my systematic literature review, I only use search engines from Web of Science, Web of Knowledge, and also Scopus. Okay, I don't go through Google search, because when you go to Google search, Google Scholar, okay, Google Scholar, you might be finding everything. Okay, if you can put in the keywords, but you might even get books and proceedings and even newspaper cuttings and articles from magazine and so on. So you will get all this bunch of all these articles. Okay, but when we do systematic literature, we make sure that you only get from all these so-called good sources. Okay, good sources. Because why? Because we want to base on evidence-based kind of research. Okay, it is based on evidence-based. Okay, evidence-based and research, and we want to get from a quality kind of research. Okay, so these are the criteria that you need to set from the very beginning. Okay, it's not wrong. Okay, it's not wrong if you say, okay, I want to include journals, I want to include proceedings and all these things, but then you have to remember when the moment you start to include journals, proceedings, books, manuscript, and so on, you will be ending up with so many papers to review. Then you have like about 200, 300 papers. Are you going to review all these papers? You know, so you have to set this inclusion criteria. We call it inclusion criteria. What kind of sources that you want to get? Okay, so from the very beginning, you have to decide. Like in my case, I have decided very clearly that I want to get only these papers from all these so-called good journals. Okay, so that's the reason I only stick to all these search engines, for example, like Web of Science, Web of Knowledge, and also perhaps Scopus. Okay, I didn't use Google Scholar at all because I know the moment I use Google Scholar, I will get all this junk actually. So I don't want. Okay, so I don't want. So to make sure that the papers that you review are from a high quality kind of journal, so you have to restrict yourself. Okay, so this will also make your discussion even more stronger. Okay, because why? Because your sources are from good sources, so-called the good sources, or from the good journals. Okay, so if you are getting all these sources from conference proceedings, this and that, and so on, so that the quality of your discussions would not be even strong actually. Okay, so when during the review process, the review of your paper, your journal paper, your systematic literature paper, the reviewer might be even asking you. They will ask you why are you taking all these sources from books? Why why magazines? Why this document? Why that document and so on? Okay, so it is not right, it's not wrong, but you have to make sure that what kind of discussion that you want to have. If you want to have a good quality kind of discussions, make sure that your sources are from your journals are from good sources actually. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. Dr. Sri,
Yeah.
there's
Yes.
quite a number of requests from the participant. They ask about the slide. Can they have your slides today, or is there any possibility to get your slides?
Can. Okay. How do I do? Can I?
Can they personally email you, or yeah, I'm not sure how's the
Yeah. If anyone of, okay, I can prepare a PDF version. Okay.
yeah.
If you want, you can just email to me. Okay, email to me. I will just send it to you. The PDF version of today's presentation.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay. Any more? We have 10 more minutes, precious time. Any more question you want to ask?
There's a question for me.
Yes, please.
My name is Ng Jiang Li, is a MSIM student. Is it Dr. Sri?
Yes, Mr. Ng.
Yeah, this is we can apply in our dissertation as well. Yeah, but I see my C is quite heavy.
Okay. For those of you who are doing masters by coursework, okay, I would not advise you to do a systematic review. Okay, a systematic review, because it takes some time. Okay, it takes some time. So it is perhaps it's not. I would say it's not appropriate. Okay, for those of you who are doing masters by coursework to conduct systematic review. Okay, because I know you're from this course, which is only about a year. Okay, so you have only 3 semesters. So I would not advise. I would not advise. But I strongly advise those PhD students out there to take this as an opportunity, okay, to bring systematic review as part of your PhD project. Okay.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay.
Maybe I'm preparing for a future continuation of PhD.
Yes,
Yes.
yes, of course. Yeah, should you should. Yeah, you should. Actually, my advice is, I mean, especially to our PhD students out there. Okay, try to consider. Okay, try to consider. Try to talk. I know some of the lecturers. I mean, they're not very comfortable with systematic review. Some they might say that it's waste of time and so on. But try to convince. Okay, try to convince your supervisors. You need to convince them. Okay, like even my supervisor said that it will be waste of time. But of course, I mean, he didn't discourage me. Okay, so but you must will be able to, I mean, take the challenge. Okay, once you have start to, I mean, take the first step, you need to finish up. Okay, you need to finish up. For those of you, okay, who are still in your, like in your first, second semester, or perhaps third semester, perhaps you can consider on doing conducting a systematic review. Okay, because you must also have these strategies. Okay, strategies, because when you do systematic review, you also have these opportunities. Okay, to publish your paper, because by the time you do your data collection and your analysis and so on, it will be already your third year, and by third year you start to write your papers and get published. It will be already in your, you're already in your fourth year and so on. Okay, so as earlier as possible, try to use this systematic review as a strategic, okay, as a strategic way for you to get your publication out as soon as possible. Okay, because even myself, I mean, I managed to publish my paper, my first paper for my PhD project when I was in my second year. Okay, same goes even for my PhD students and my master students. They tend to publish a paper, so there's no need for you to wait until the end of your studies in order to publish. Okay, of course, once you started your research, okay, the research papers that you publish, I mean, of course, it takes a longer time, but try to publish, try to make use of this systematic review as a strategy. I mean, in your PhD project, because you know, when you do your PhD project, you have to arrange all these strategic, you know, or you need to plan all these things ahead. Okay, you must foresee all these things, even you know, in your first semester or second semester, like from out of my topic. Okay, how many papers would I be able to publish and so on, and which journals? So all these things, I mean, if you have planned, okay, you have pre-planned even much more earlier would be better, because once you have planned, then you know your journey. So your journey will be very clear. The problem is because most of these students, I mean, you don't have a proper plan. You just go by itself. Okay, you know that, okay, you need to collect your data. After collect your data, you know, you need to analyze, and then so what? So what's next? Okay, so if you don't have all these pre-planned kind of thing, okay, so it will be very difficult. I mean, the whole journey for you to go through, because you have to go through this journey by yourself. Okay, so try to plan, okay, from the very beginning, especially those students who are in your first and second semesters. Okay, I would say that it will be a very great opportunity if you can conduct a systematic review. Okay, you must systematic review, and it will be beneficial because once you have conducted your systematic review, the discussion part, okay, the discussion part for your thesis and also for your other papers will be very helpful. Because why? Because you have already read all the papers related to your research topic in your first semester or in your second semester itself. Okay, so it will help. So you can okay, I would say that it's not wrong. Okay, you can just cut and paste. Okay, basically you can cut and paste, okay, the discussion that you have done for your paper one, for your systematic review, for your thesis, and also for your other papers. Okay.
Hello,
Okay,
Dr.
any
Sri.
questions?
Hello,
Yes.
Dr. Sri. I have a question. Wastra here. I have two questions. Talking about the papers. My first question is it necessary in systematic review to have method when we write a paper, article journal? And the second question is, do you have any tips to ensure our systematic review paper will be can be accepted in the by the publisher?
Okay. Your first question. Yes, you need a method. Okay, because the method, okay, which I mentioned, based on the Prisma or Cochrane way of, all these methods have been established. Okay, they have been established, and I said before, all these methods have been used widely in the medical field. Okay, in the medical field, because people in the medical line, they like to do systematic review. Because why they have to like to do systematic review? Because they want to find all these evidence-based kind of research. Okay, for example, one particular heart disease and so on, for example, like in tropical country. So they like to do like a systematic review. What is going on now with all these heart diseases among Asians in the tropical country and so on. So it all started from all this in the medical line, and all these methods, I mean the system I mentioned before, have been established. Okay, so you have to use. Okay, you need to use this proper method for when it comes for writing a systematic review paper. You have to. Okay, it can be Prisma, or you can even follow method developed by Cochrane. Okay, Cochrane is a different method. Okay, the one that I'm showing you, I showed you this morning, was based on Prisma actually. So there are also other methods, but Prisma is a quite a famous, okay, a famous and very straightforward kind of method. So to answer your first question, yes, in order for you to write, okay, you need to follow the method, okay, the proper method. Okay, question number 2, how to make sure that your paper will get accepted actually. Okay, first of all, okay, my paper, okay, my systematic literature review paper was rejected. Okay, was rejected after 8 months. Okay, I sent to this journal of Urban Landscape and Planning. Okay, they got rejected. Okay, my paper was rejected. Of course, it came with so many comments and so on. Okay, but I resubmitted again to a different journal. It was even a Q1 journal, and of course, after going through, I think about one or 2 years, I mean, then it got accepted actually. Okay, so just to share with you all, okay, what are the possibilities for your papers to get accepted? Okay, as a reviewer, okay, as a reviewer, because I used to review all these papers from most of these journals from Elsevier in my field of study, okay, on landscape architecture and landscape studies and so on. I would like to see papers which have a very detailed explanation on the method itself, okay, as what you asked in your first question. So it is that there's a need, okay, there's really a need for you to explain in detail how did you do the search strategies, using what kind of keywords and so on, and using what kind of search engines and so on. I wanted to know. And I also wanted to know things like, how do you eliminate, okay, for example, like from your first search, okay, normally from our first search, we get about like 1,260 papers, and then towards the end, we get only about perhaps 82 papers or 63 papers and so on. So how do you refine? How do you refine all these papers? I mean, it should be stated clearly in your paper. Okay, I want to see how from 1,026 papers, it went down to 62 papers towards the end. I want to see the refining process. How do you refine? How do you refine? So for me, the important part is on the method section. The method section should be very clear. If you want to use Prisma, you must state it clearly that you are using Prisma. And if you're using the 209 version, it's fine, but you have to say that it is 209, or are you using the Prisma 2020 version? So it should be stated clearly. The number 2 is on, of course, on the findings. Okay, on the findings and also discussion. How do you discuss your findings? I mean, are you relating it to the theory that involved or not? Okay, I will also check this kind of things. Okay, so these are some of the things that I look for when I review systematic review paper actually.
Thank you, Dr. Sri.
Thank you,
Any
Doctor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any last question before we ended this lovely talk today? You have anything anymore? No? Okay, I think this is the end, Jane. Okay, I think today we have enough good information today. Thank you very much, Dr. Sri, for your
Thank
willingness to
you.
give your talk to us. Very informative, lovely slides. Okay, all right. Before we end it, I would like to say thank you to all the event team, especially the FRSB, to letting this happen. Thank you very much to Dr. Sri also. And then thank you very much to all of you for coming today. Okay, you spend your time, your energy to listen to new knowledge maybe. Yeah. And good luck for your study. All right. Anything if you have further questions, you can directly contact Dr. Sri through his email. Okay, and then for this recorded video, you can go to our Facebook. You can have a look at the chat room. They have a link about our FRSB UPF Facebook. You can click in there and then you can see back the recorded video. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a lovely day. Thank you very much, Dr. Sri.
Thank you. Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you, Fabian. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Assalamualaikum. Ramadan Mubarak to all Muslim friends.
Waalaikumsalam.